Okay, welcome to the next installment of my book reading recap. Um, Last installment were the preceding 3 months, which would have been June, May, and April. Am I doing math right? Do I know how to math? I believe it should have been April, May, and June. So we're doing the last 3 months of summer, beginning of fall at the end of September. So we're just calling this summer wrap up because the majority of it was summer. So we'll be covering the months of July, August, and September. What I read for those 3 months. Spoiler alert: it wasn't much, but I'm making progress towards meeting my yearly goal. Um, my Goodreads goal is 150. I don't think I will reach it, but you never know because I'm on my second, third, 50th wind right now. So you never know. So what books did I read? July, I read Collectable Names and Designs of Women's Handbags, Plantation Memories, Attack on Titan, Volume 33, which is the penultimate volume. I believe the last one has yet to come out, at least domestically, the US, and then The Burning Girls. August, I read 400 Souls, Honeycomb, and American Kompromat. And in September, I finished, and I keep saying read when I mean I finished, because a lot of these I start months ago, and I only finish them in these respective months. In September, I finished the Atlas of Extinct Countries, Power of Geography, Contrapaso, Children of Others, Amazing Temples of the World, and The Tree of Knowledge. Yeah, let's get into it. So, July again, I read 4 books. First one was Collectible Names and Designs in Women's Handbags. This was essentially written from a perspective of someone in the UK. And it was I guess you might say, guidebook on what one might look for when building handbag collection. What are things that others look for or others prize and value? What are things that are valued? So certain designers, certain stories of craftsmanship and long-lasting histories of maybe fashion brands, etc. I like handbags, so I liked this book a lot. If you're not into fashion, or specifically this niche of fashion, you might not like it, but I think it was really well written in the context of the storytelling of the brands and just the general tips. I was like getting into certain bags and designers who I'd never heard of. I'm like, ooh, the way this person describes, the author Tracy Martin describes this backstory makes me sound interested, makes me, I really wanted to like immediately go out and buy bags, but I have a problem where I buy a lot of bags and I don't use them all the time, especially now that we're not going out. So I'm holding myself back on that, but soon enough, like I passed on the main street by where I live, and there's a really nice bag. And I feel like if I go and I ask how much it is, it's going to be $50. And not that I don't think it's worth it because it looks really nice. And I just like kooky bags, like I always have. It's not necessarily kooky, but I'm not spending $50 on a bag right now anyway. It's a point. But one day maybe, if we move, I'm definitely gonna go and buy it before we move because I would like it amongst my bags. Moving along. Next one was Plantation Memories by Grada Kllomba. I believe she's German, Afro-German, and this is a translation from, I guess, the text that was originally published in 2008. And it really was in the context of Germany, of African identity, and I guess the larger scheme, um, just relating how a lot of interactions with people of the Afro diaspora and people without the Afro diaspora, um, especially of those without the Afro diaspora but from Europe, um, how a lot of those interactions echo plantation dynamics or just post-slavery, post-colonial dynamics. This was really interesting. Gave it a 5 stars. Definitely recommend. I think it won some awards when it came out. It was just really good. Am I surprised? No. Do I always want to learn? Always. So, because hearing the experiences of a niche pocket or minority group in a given context is always interesting, and that's how you learn. So yes. Um, anyway, 5 stars. Attack on Titan, Volume 33. Uh, Penultimate volume. The series is coming to an end, like I said. I think the next volume is supposed to come out this month, but I don't know because I think maybe they're trying to match it up with the release of the last episode. I don't know. I still haven't started because my whole thing was I wanted to read the manga, catch up with the manga before I started watching the last season. I guess I could do that now because I'm all caught up on the manga. Do I want to though? I probably should. But anyway, 5 stars. At this point, the tension is high. What's gonna happen? It feels like we're going one way, but it feels like really we could go either way at this point, story wise. So I gave it 5 stars. Yeah. And then the last book I finished in the month of July was The Burning Girls. This there's a show on Netflix right now, Midnight Mass. Ooh, mysterious priest comes in, and maybe things seem to surround the priest. This is kind of the reverse, where it's more like priest goes away to a distant village in the countryside. Again, a UK book set in the UK. Goes to the countryside to kind of hide out and digs deep into this local mystery. And it's okay. The ending, the reveal is kind of like what? Um, it was entertaining. Um, but it was also like, were we really telegraphing that the whole time? I don't know that we were. I don't know that we were telegraphing that ending. But also it's kind of just like, you know, there's so many aspects of the ending that are contestable because the young daughter's relationship, the overall hidden backstory thing. I don't know. I gave it 3 stars. It's an okay read. I wasn't like dying for more. It was what it was, and it seems more supernatural than it is, and it's not as supernatural as I hoped it would be. So, again, 3 stars. So moving on to the month of August, I finished 3 books in the month of August. The first was 400 Souls, which was edited by Ibram X. Kendi and Keisha and Blaine. And you had a bunch of contributors contributing essays, and the way that the book rolled out was as the book title, or even the what do you call that, the little subtitle might suggest. It's 400 years of American history, and they're told in chunks, and you have different essays and um, poetry. What do you call poems? Different essays and poems from different contributors, um, linearly, chronologically telling the story from different viewpoints. So you have these little pockets of legal cases or um, just facts, just actual story reporting. It was really great. I learned a lot. The White Lion. Why in my 30s am I learning about the White Lion? That by itself speaks so much to all of the failings of American educational system. And I guess for some people those aren't failings; those are purposeful, engineered setups. But whatever. I gave this 5 stars. I thought it was great, and I think every book I'm giving 5 stars. Well, not every book. I'll say this is a must read. Plantation Memories was a must read. Yeah, yeah. Uh, Next book I finished was Honeycomb. This was really cute. I think the description markets it as like a fairy book of fairy tales, and which it is actually. But it's not fairy tales as in the way of like, ooh, the classic fairy tales of X region. It's kind of just like it's a fictional it's a fictional fairy tale with this fairy king and his subjects and his line, and I get it's, which is weird because you kind of have the story kind of rooting for the main fairy, and it's like, but fairies are mischievous and he is known to be terrible, but we don't have the rooting so much for the female characters he slighted horrifically. Whatever. But I really enjoyed it. I think it was a wild ride. I like the way the story was told. And I think if you're into fantasy written in a really poetic way, you would enjoy this. Um, yeah, it's just like a cute little story. Well, it's not little; it's actually like 400 pages. So, but I really enjoyed it, and I would also recommend this. I wouldn't necessarily say must read. I don't necessarily say a lot of fiction books are must reads. I usually keep that must read for nonfiction books and reference books. But again, 5 stars. So do with that what you will. Next one was American Kompromat. Now, just look at this. At this, how do I say? That's not title page. This cover. It's red. We have Donald Trump's profile. American Kompromat. We have this Soviet-esque type font. It's definitely about to be about Russian influence, Russian links to Donald Trump. You would think. You would think. Um, but no, I mean, it's about that, but it's more about just general KGB Kompromat program and how that ties to manipulation of people in specific positions of power, and how these people might, are likely connected. Tells a really sordid tale of everyone around Epstein, and Jelaine, I forget her last name, I should know, Maxwell, uh, and the like. You have some interviews with former KGB agents, former state officials, and whatnot. Um, so, on the one hand, I thought it was going to be more focused on, Trump specifically, but no, it's more focused on maybe the people around Trump. And in that sense, more of an implication, but it's actually just like factual things, but also like supposed things because you don't necessarily always have a lot of facts, respectively. But I enjoyed it. It wasn't entirely what I thought it was going to be, but it was really still a good read. So 4 stars. I would recommend this. Again, I'm not saying it's a must read, but 4 stars. So it was quite a good read. And that's it for the month of August, those 3 books. But August was probably like my strongest month of reading because I had 2 5 stars and one 4 stars. So it was a good month. And then this last month, September, that just passed, I finished 5 books. And the first one of that was The Atlas of Extinct Countries. So, as the title suggests, it's just a history of countries that are no longer, whether those countries were merged and became a new part of a new country, whether those countries actually didn't exist, maybe those countries were failed attempts to begin with. It was really interesting, and it's just another fun look at the history of the world and a reminder that nations are relatively temporary and can always change. Um, so I thought this was really great. I learned a lot. I added a lot of locations to my GeoGuessr map. So 5 stars from me. I'll probably try and link a challenge link in the description for this video. So because of all of the geography we're getting, more coming up. Next one was The Power of Geography, Tim Marshall. I gave this one 4 stars. Kind of like, here are 10 regions of the world and how they're primed, or how conflicts ongoing or policies ongoing are set to define or set the stage for future conflicts, future politics, whatever. So we had some that were, relatively known, Australia, Spain, relatively tangible rather, and then some that were a little less, like space. I enjoyed it. I learned a lot, but I mean, I guess I feel like there's always a slant. There's always a slant not always. There's generally a slant, especially when you have it written from a male author who comes from a Western country. There's always a slant that tends to be where the writing can tend to sometimes read as very pro-Western and a bit paternalistic, maybe. So anyway, I enjoyed it. The writing was like okay, but I enjoyed it a lot. And again, 4 stars. So a solid read. Next one I finished was Contrapaso, Children of Others. This was a translation. The original was in Spanish, but it's a graphic novel, and it's set in fascist Spain. And you have the two main characters. One's a younger cop. Sorry, not cop. One's a younger journalist. The other one's a older journalist, and they're trying to, I guess, or they work within the confines of fascism, etc. And they are trying to uncover the truth, the hidden truth behind this set of murders, etc., etc. And having finished the 10, the Power of Geography, where it focused on like these 10 regions. It spoke about Spain and Spain's history with fascism, etc. And then going to this, where it's like, okay, I didn't necessarily know so much about Spain's fascist history. Oh, here's some more, or here's a painting of a picture of what life might have been like. It was really interesting, and very very. Very much like I felt like this is. I felt like this is fact. Like this is what happened. I'm sure it's actually based in a lot of fact. I'm sure it's based on a lot of fact. But secret conspiracies, uncovering the truth. The truth ended up being really disheartening and disgusting, and it was great story wise. The whole uncovering. I hated the younger journalist. He was annoying and entitled. Yeah, but it works. The whole thing works. So I gave it a 5 stars, and I would definitely recommend One Reads. Yeah, I don't know if there's gonna be others because it's written Contrapaso 1, The Children of Others. So I don't know if there's gonna be other volumes or sequel graphic novels. That'd be fun. I don't know if they'll also be in the same setting time wise or not. But again, 5 stars. So next book I finished was American Temples of the World, Michael Kerrigan. Again, apologies if I'm not reading all of the authors. As the name implies, we're going throughout the world and we're looking at temples. And it's a lot of non-Abrahamic temples, but also Jewish temples, because as the author puts forth, that the actual Jewish temple for I guess religious worship is in one spot, and these other temples are not necessarily temples in that sense. It's an interesting explanation he gives, but it's a lot of lovely imagery, a lot of temples that are accompanied by respective historical blurbs surrounding their construction, and their maybe fall into ruin or disrepair. Some of them are newer in the Americas. Really enjoyable. Again, like Atlas of Extinct Countries and the other two, or not the other two, The Power of Geography. I also added a lot of locations to my GeoGuessr map, so I enjoyed it for that as well. But I wanted more. We could have had maybe more, but also for a quick read, it's really solid. So 4 stars, for me, and I really enjoyed it, and I think everyone would enjoy it. Sit on at a coffee table. Do you sit at a coffee table? Sit. There's a coffee table in front of you. Pick up the book, and it's like, oh, interesting. Okay, I'm liking it. Oh, okay, I didn't know that. So yeah, 4 stars for me from this book. Yeah, man. The last book I read in this 3 month period was The Tree of Knowledge, Daniel G. Miller. I'm going to read what I quoted. Imagine a person who could visualize 10 steps ahead, not only in the game of chess, but in every human interaction. That was the premise of the book, and that then becomes applied to everything. And then you have people fighting for this, I guess, system of logic that would allow them to do this, and conspiracy of hidden cabals, um, hidden cabals and what's what I'm looking for? Conspiracies, political conspiracies. And I had issues with this book because the main character is in his, I think, 30s at this point, and it's a lot. The majority of all of the main characters went to like Princeton, and they were all involved or they were all linked to the Princeton maths department. So that's enough in itself. Um, but then you have the female antagonist who, the younger female antagonist who was a child prodigy, and she got into Princeton early at like 14, and she had a crush on the male protagonist, but he was older. And so when he rejected her again at 14, because she was 14 and he was a grown man, which is what he should have done, she felt slighted and she kept that with her and she hated him for that. But then, like, him looking back as a 30-year-old, or 30 whatever year old, he's like, it was the right thing to do, right? Like, sometimes I felt like feelings for her. And it's just like disgusting. Blech! Disgusting. We didn't have to go that way. But then, so it's like, okay, so now she's 28 and you're like, I think it was maybe 33. And you have a grad student who's like 23, but he randomly makes out with her. And there's just random knowledge, not knowledge, random wording in throughout the book that sounds very pedophilic adjacent. And it's weird and fine, you know, yeah. Let's ignore that, even though you really can't, but let's ignore that, let's say. The story wasn't crazy. It was kind of predictable. It was a lot of male wish fulfillment. Oh yes, I am an old 60, 70-year-old man, but because of logic, I can beat people 3 times, you know, younger than me and stronger than me physically, but logic. It was really corny, but it didn't offend me to the absolute worst, so I didn't give it a 1 star. But I wouldn't recommend it. I don't think I would. No. Unfortunately not. It's probably the worst book of the 3 months I read. Yeah. 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 Anyway, I will be linking the respective month summaries, recaps, my blog in the description, as well as a GeoGuessr challenge, I guess. Thanks for watching. I don't know. I would love to do a book of a video on books I'm currently reading, but that kind of changes on a whim. So the best thing would be to just check again my book vlog and see now at the bottom of the page what books I'm reading currently. Or to follow me on GoodReads. Anyway, thanks for watching. We're now in the best season of the year, at least like, you know, aesthetic wise, let's say. Because it's all, well, hopefully it gets colder, and hopefully, you know, we get snow this year in this region, like a solid snow, but who knows with global warming and all that jazz. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you've read any of these books and you have a discordant opinion, let me know. We can have it out. We can duke it out with our words in the in the comments. And if any of these sound good to you, let me know, and I can tell you why I think you should read them. Except that last one. Or, you know, where you might be able to find them. Some of these books, I believe all of them are published, but some of them may not be. I get these off of NetGalley, except for Attack on Titan. That was the one book I got from the library, ebook edition. Anyway, thanks for watching. Until next time, goodbye.